week. Lions played a playoff adjacent team, won by 18, which by their standards is close. Lions undefeated on the road this year. Here's Dan Campbell.
That got us to 10. That's 10. That's 9 in a row. How many of you guys have won 9 in a row in here in the NFL? Raise your hand. Yeah, it's saying something. It's rare. All right, we're in rare air right now. All right, so we're doing something special, which we knew we would.
Okay, so that was a coach. Your read on that? That was a positive from Dan Campbell. Are they the scariest team in the league?
Yeah, to some degree they are, because it's a little bit like when you watch a fighter. There's some fighters that come up pre-fight and they talk, and you know it's bravado. You know that they're trying to convince themselves that they're tough. Where there's other fighters that come up, and when you see them talk, you're like, oh, that dude is legitimately a hard man. And it feels like this team has taken on the persona of the head coach, and that the things, and he's challenged them, and he runs a demanding program, and their guys haven't fought against that. They've bought into it. Even when it was hard, they bought into it. And that's what makes them scary, is that, you know, what they're being asked is difficult, and they're not only embracing it, they're able to almost personify it as a group.
The scariest team to me is the Chiefs, because they got Patrick Mahomes. Like, if you're talking about winning a game, the toughest team to beat is going to be the Chiefs. And I mentioned Mahomes, but I think the thing about, and I like Detroit, Coach. They clearly look very good, but they don't have any like super duper stars on most of their play. Like, Jared Goff is really good, not a superstar.
Their superstars are their offensive linemen.
Yeah,
really.
Running backs, I mean, Jahmyr Gibbs, their running backs are good.
The running back
but
duos,
it's not,
yeah.
you know, the duo's great, but it doesn't. It's not like they got
really
Saquon
good.
Barkley.
He's
kind of more of a possession guy. So,
but wouldn't you rather have a team of
it's a
very
great
good
team,
across the
but I
board?
do think when you don't have that one or two guys that are like a Tyreek Hill and a Mahomes or something like that, it's like Baltimore even. I mean, look, I get that Baltimore is up and down and the defense isn't good. I kind of feel like they're scary, other than against the Chiefs, they're scarier to many teams, I think, just because you got to deal with Lamar and Derrick Henry.
So I think that actually makes sense, and because I pulled some streaks. I was just looking at like the Lions website, all these streaks. I'm like, these streaks are not like, oh my goodness, like blow your top off, amazing, but they're all just we're a steady good team. They had 3 TDs on the ground yesterday, 22 straight games with a rushing touchdown. It's tied for the 3rd longest streak in history. 10 straight quarters without giving up a touchdown, and no team has thrown multiple touchdowns against them. So again, those aren't like wow, but it's like, man, they're definitely gonna run one in, and if you throw one, you're definitely not gonna throw another one. So, and we can say what we want about Goff. Goff didn't have a great game, and his numbers like, oh, still solid, and they can run the ball and they play defense.
I think they're a really good team. I think every single football fan in America, if your team is neither the Chiefs nor the Lions, and you're asked the question, you can play one of these teams to win the championship. Who would you rather play? Every football fan in America would say, I'll take my chances with Detroit.
It's probably.
We all know, like that.
Set that reputation.
Right.
They've earned it.
It's just the quarterback.
Yes, sure.
You're purely on the
sure,
quarterback.
but the quarterback's on the team.
Absolutely.
And also, I think, well, you're saying that it's purely the quarterback, but I think the Chiefs have a better defense than Detroit, even though the last 2 weeks they haven't. What to me was impressive about Detroit this week was their defense. Because obviously they don't have Hutchinson anymore. They lost Anzalone last week, and to do what they did defensively was, I think,
2 weeks in a row, right, where they've only given up 6 points.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. The defense playing this well when you know they're going to run the ball well is very impressive. I would just caution everyone about Detroit. It's not their fault they're in the toughest division in the league, but they are one bad 8-day stretch from going from the 1 seed to the 5 seed. When the team on your tail's 9-2 and plays you again later in the year, their whole world can change. And so, like the Vikings, all of it, like the Eagles are locked in. Worst case scenario 2 seed, probably best case scenario 2 seed. But Detroit,
there's not one easy game on Detroit, unless the Niners just mail it in.
Or if the Bears, you can say, but it's a divisional game whose quarterback's playing well. So sure. I think things could turn on them quickly.
If you were
okay, let's talk about this. Let's try to do this very nuanced, okay? I'm going to say off at the top, especially for Detroit Lions fans. I think that the Lions are the scariest team in the NFL. I think they're the scariest team. I've been calling them the best team in the NFL for weeks now. But let's try to unpack this as nuanced, be as nuanced as we can. Because I understand what Brew is saying in terms of when you don't have that individual player or something that really intimidates you. I will say that there is something to be said about a singular great player, a singular elite player versus a great player, or at least having that singular player who's leading the charge of many other great players. So I don't think it's one or the other, one or another, because there is the sense, right? You go up against the Ravens and you're like, I don't think the Ravens are that intimidating. But I'll say this a lot of times when I'm talking about the Ravens or a team like the Ravens, I'll say, yeah, I don't know, but at any moment Lamar Jackson can absolutely go off, right? And there's that feeling of just like Lamar could just be on one, or Mahomes or Josh Allen or whoever. But again, let's use Josh Allen as an example. You can't necessarily say, especially in years past, that the Buffalo Bills were this scary, intimidating team. Or again, he used Tyreek Hill as an example. Are the Miami Dolphins scary? Were the Miami Dolphins scary last year? They had Tyreek Hill. So you can't always go by these individual singular players as to what's leading this scary charge. On one side, you can say it's actually scarier when you don't know who that player is, where you don't know where the greatness is coming from. It's like being alone in the dark with a bunch of bad people. You don't know where to look, where to go. And a lot of times it's kind of easier. Okay, that guy's really dangerous. The lights are on. I got to stay away from that guy. It's when it's dark out and you can't see anything and you're like, I don't even know. You're with a room full of people and you're like, I don't know who not to trust. I just know I'm uncomfortable here. It's kind of like going into like a haunted house in a lot of ways. So to me, that in a lot of ways makes the Lions scary, because let's say what made them really, really great was that they had like just a next level generational quarterback or running back or wide receiver, whatever it may be. Your mentality would kind of be like, yeah, they're really great, but we just need to slow him down. We need to slow him down. Or even there's even a feeling, let's say in the playoffs, he might get banged up. Tyreek Hill has had to sit out a bunch of plays. Derrick Henry, sure. When you're a singular player and that player goes down or is just a little banged up, Christian McCaffrey. Now, granted, the 49ers definitely had a lot of other pieces, but it's known, especially last year, Christian McCaffrey, he was already babying his calf and stuff. He was always being wrapped around. I remember going into that Super Bowl thinking, okay, he's got to stay healthy. I mean, I remember thinking there's a great chance that he's going to maybe be banged up or not 100%. And that really changes the dynamics of it all. Now, again, to be fair, the Lions obviously have some players that you don't want to be banged up. Amon-Ra St. Brown, obviously Jared Goff. Pick your poison in terms of any running back. Like, those things will always exist to a degree, but I don't think people have to question the scariest team. And again, people will say the Chiefs, like for Nick's example, saying that the Chiefs are the scariest team only because we know of their history. And that's why I don't think it's fully fair. I think if we just looked at it this year and didn't know anything about the past, you would say without a shadow of a doubt, the vast majority, 100% of the people would be saying that the Lions are scarier than the Chiefs. But obviously with the history, and it's not just because of Patrick Mahomes, it's also going to be Spags and Andy Reid. You're going to know that those coaches can bring it. And yes, at the end of the day, you are going to trust an Andy Reid over a Dan Campbell. You just are. Because we know the history. We know what those coaches, and same thing, Mahomes over Goff. Even if Goff this year is statistically having a better year than Mahomes and is playing better than Mahomes this year, you're still going to know, well, I know that's Patrick Mahomes. So then that's the real question is does history repeat itself? That seems to be how Kansas City Chiefs are kind of hanging their hat on, is the whole idea of like, hey, this worked for us in the past. we're going to continue to work. We've always been great in the playoffs, so even though we're not playing as great right now in the regular season, we will find a way to turn it on. That may or may not be true. I mean, it's not like they've been doing this for 10 years. I mean, if they've had year after year after year after year after year of success of doing that, then sure, but it was only just the last year that people said, hey, they're not playing that great, and then they won. So let's not pretend like, oh, this is just what the Kansas City Chiefs do all the time. No, that's not true. That's not how it's unfolded for them. So there's a lot of like extra benefit of the doubt given to the Kansas City Chiefs and taken away from the Detroit Lions. Because again, there's the feeling, oh well, if they're in the Super Bowl, if they're in the NFC Championship game, I don't know, can they do it? Can they find a way? How will Jared Goff play? How will Dan Campbell be? Ben Johnson? When on the other side, it's like, oh, I trust Andy Reid. I trust Mahomes. I trust Specs. And they've earned that trust. I mean, that is the difference between experience and winning versus not. You do earn that level of trust and respect. But the way how I try to evaluate more than anything right now is I look at it season to season. I really don't care that the Kansas City Chiefs won a Super Bowl in 22. Everyone keeps saying, oh, back-to-back Super Bowl champions. That doesn't mean anything to me in this third year. It's a different team with different players running a different offense and a different defense and different, they're winning games differently. Even some of the same players are different because they're older. They're either better or worse or more banged up, like whatever it may be. Patrick Mahomes is not the same level of quarterback he was 2 years ago. Neither is Travis Kelce in terms of obviously being a tight end. I can go down this. Andy Reid's not the same coach. Spags not the same coach. Are you the same person that you were 2-3 years ago? The answer is no, you are not. No matter how much you think you are 1000% not. You are already a different person. So these athletes are different athletes. This team is a different team. So that's why it's going to be fascinating. Because if history always repeated itself, then we would just have one Super Bowl champion. It would just be the whoever won it first, and they would just win it year after year after year. Nothing would change. Nothing would change. And things change all the time. The only thing that remains the same is change. So is Detroit the scariest team in the NFL? Absolutely. Because we know how hard they play. They just go so hard. And I think that's the most intimidating thing. Are you intimidated by the brains of Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes' clutchness and his eliteness? Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think in years past, whether it's offensively or defensively, there was this greater fear of the Kansas City Chiefs because of what they could do, because you knew that they were just also, if the game was going to be ugly, they were going to bully them their way through it. But it was still close. With the Detroit Lions, they bully themselves through, they beat you down, and then they get up big. So yeah, this is the scariest team in the NFL. I don't know who would pick the Kansas City Chiefs to be the scariest team in the NFL. It's just, I mean, yeah, is Patrick Mahomes the scariest quarterback? Absolutely. But we have to get away from this idea that a whole team is founded upon just your quarterback. That's absurd. That's just not how things work. It's just not. I understand sometimes it's a little bit easier to be scared of something when you can zero in on one thing. Mahomes. You know, scary person. But I mean, like, what would you be more afraid of? Just one killer or a pack of killers? The answer is obvious. A pack of lions or just one singular tiger? I'm going to be scared of a pack of lions. But those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think about the Detroit Lions being the scariest team in the NFL? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment, so whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get in some discussions. Let's get in some fights. But ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We're building an amazing community here, and I absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to. Something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're well on our way to doing it. And please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help with the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much. See you next time.